This station is conducting a test of the emergency broadcasting system. This is only a test. This is a test of the emergency broadcasting system. The broadcasters of your area, in voluntary cooperation with federal, state, and local authorities, have developed this system to keep you informed in the event of an emergency. If this had been an actual emergency, the attention signal you've just heard would have been followed by official information, news, or instructions. This station serves the
That's right, the emergency broadcast system being activated this morning here on Radio Free Auburn. It is 6:01 a.m. on the plains, a balmy 28 degrees this morning, and I am Uncle T-Bone, your friend, your buddy, your pal, and just a regular old fan trying to make sense of what in the holy hell is going on here in Auburn, Alabama. Good morning, worldwide Facebook, still unbanned, and happy to be here. We got a lot to talk about this morning. This emergency broadcast brought to you by our good friends at Roots Real Estate in Auburn. That's right, Roots Real Estate in Auburn. My good friend Nick Hayes and his crew over there at rootsauburn.com. Let me tell you something. I have done some business with Roots, one of the most professional bunches I've ever had to deal with in my entire life. I had a pleasure of dealing with them. And I want you to go over there if you got any kind of real estate questions or you need some solutions. Find yourself some solid ground to plant your roots and settle down. That's Roots Real Estate in Auburn. My good friend Nick Hayes, not just an Auburn fan, but an Auburn man. And you know the magic words. Tell him Uncle T-Bone sent you. Thank you, Roots, for letting me be here this morning and providing some type of answers to what's happening here in Auburn right now. I was hoping that we were going to, like we said this past Tuesday, finally put football season behind us with National Signing Day in the culmination of the end of the regular football season in college football for 2021, and we're going to move right into basketball because this is the time of year when it gets really fun in college basketball. And then we were just going to keep on rolling it on along through basketball season with a couple of broadcasts, maybe for the Masters, maybe for a little spring football, until we got to July and after the 4th of July to really start pumping the 2022 college football season. But oh no, just when you think you're out, like Michael Corleone, just when you think you're out, they just pull you back in, brother. And this is what's going on currently in the Auburn football program. It's a rock fight, okay? And I can't put it to you any other way than I think that right now, whether it's right or wrong, in bigger terms, there's a fight for the soul of Auburn football. On one side, you have Coach Brian Harsin and the people that supported him and hired him and brought him in from the outside. And on paper, it was a very good hire. I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but on paper, it was a very good hire. Right? He had plenty of qualifications to get the Auburn job. And then on the other side, I think you have a group of folks that never really wanted him here. For whatever reasons, okay? They didn't feel comfortable with the hire. They didn't think that he was the right person for the job. They didn't think from the very start it was a good fit. Whatever. Caught in the middle of that is all us regular old Joes who just want to watch a quality navy blue and orange jersey fight for their lives every Saturday and fight for their brand and fight for their fans and fight their battles in places like Knoxville, Tennessee, Athens, Georgia, and Jordan-Hare Stadium on the football field, and so we can cheer our hearts out and get all that raw emotion, all that competitiveness out of our bodies, instead of taking it to the streets like in the good old days and having just a knockdown and drag out. These teams fight our battles for us now. And all of us that grew up into this life of college football can't quite explain the emotional roller coaster that it is, the people who just never have. And that being said, right now, since mid-afternoon, early evening Thursday, rumors have been circulating out in the open that Brian Harsin's job at Auburn is in severe jeopardy. So we're going to go through all that and try and make sense of it. I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. This isn't that kind of show. I don't have sources. I read the news just like you guys do. Some of you might have some answers. Please get in the comments section and tell us what you think is going on, and I will pass along your message. Whatever has transpired, and we're going to try and go through that in this, take just a historical look back now at Brian Harsin's first 14 months in Auburn as the head coach. Whatever has transpired and however we got here, there is no question now that a lot of dirty laundry in the Auburn football program is now being aired out to the public. And that's not just us fans, but our rival fans and everybody else that has any kind of conception of watching NCAA football. We're in the news for all the wrong reasons with that football program right now. And that's a real shame in somebody's first year, because I thought it was going to be a lot better and more stable than here we are right now. And we're going to try and figure out why in this next hour. I don't know if we'll be able to scratch the surface of what is actually going on. Who knows? We're going to try and talk a little basketball later in the show. This past week, Auburn maintained its #1 status with a massive victory over Alabama at home. They basically ran Nate Oates and the Tide up out of the gym. We called it Tuesday morning. There were two key factors to Auburn taking care of business in the Auburn arena against a salty little Alabama team. One, Walker Kessler not getting into foul trouble like he did the first time when Auburn took it up to Tuscaloosa and scratched out a victory earlier in the basketball season. Walker Kessler did not get in foul trouble. Walker Kessler was a force that entire game and had like 80 blocks in the game and 50 rebounds. I mean, he was just, there's no answer to him on Alabama's team right now. Fact. And on a lot of teams in college basketball. In fact, the majority of basketball teams in the NCAA right now would not have a day-to-day answer for Walker Kessler. The second factor we said was J.D. Davidson would not get going in this game, and if Auburn could prevent him from showing out, it took their three-guard system of Shackelford, Quinterly, and Davidson down to two. Auburn shut him down. He probably got up in his own head a little bit and shut himself down as well. 0. That's the donut hole, folks. Points Tuesday night against Auburn. Shackelford and Quinterly were great for the Tide, and they were all they had. It was 2 versus 10 the entire night, for lack of a better way to put it. J.D. Davidson was a little fired up and running his mouth, from what I could tell, to what's known as the jungle in there in Auburn Arena, and that's the student section. And he talked that talk, but he didn't walk that walk, and Auburn just dominated the Tide 100-81. And on their way to Athens, Georgia today, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we'd really like to be talking almost exclusively about basketball, but leave it to Auburn football to basically draw us back into this conversation that may not end for a very, very long time, not only on this show, but several others, in message boards and the water cooler. This could be the big one, right? This could, out of all the things that I've ever seen in Auburn athletics, since I became a fan, since I could remember when Bo went over the top in 1982 and things changed once and for all for Auburn, right? And they began to get back onto a more level playing field against Alabama and other teams around the NCAA that had kind of had their thumb on teams like Auburn's for a very long time. I've seen a lot of things though as a rabid fan, and I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this Brian Harsin saga. We're going to try and I'm going to try today to kind of list the pros and cons of his first 14 months, and I think at that point it's up to you to make the decision on as a fan, where although that our opinions really don't matter anymore. That this is something that's kind of sad to me, that I came to this epiphany yesterday, that unless you're a true player over there in Auburn athletics, and I'm talking, and they won't tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this. You're just a working class dude like me who loves your team, and it's probably beginning to be the same. And this isn't exclusive to Auburn, okay? There is so much money involved now in these athletic programs, in these football programs specifically, in the SEC and major college football, that if you're like me and $2,000 to buy 2 tickets is a lot of money to have season tickets, and I think it is. I know it is to me. If you're like me and that's a lot of money, your opinion really doesn't count anymore. So take a deep breath if you're Joe Average fan and you want to continue to be one, like I do, and just cheer for your team and cheer for the players, right? And if you don't want to go down that route, well, you better start putting big time money into that program, because it's the golden rule now. Those who have the gold make the rules. And if you don't have the gold, if you don't have the revenue, if you don't have the injection, the liquidity, the money, the cash to put into facilities, to put into NIL, to put into recruiting, to put into jets so your coach can be in Montgomery in the morning and up in Owensboro, Kentucky that afternoon to talk to a big-time football recruit, and you don't have the flash, you don't have the sizzle, you don't have the game, you don't have the cash, you don't have a prayer. And if the folks that have the money aren't willing to give you and support you the revenue that is so desperately needed to make a college football program successful, it don't matter if you're Vince Lombardi reincarnated, the best coach that's ever been, you ain't gonna make it. That's just a fact, baby. And so that's kind of where we are, and I came to that epiphany, and it's a sad one, man, because you want to believe as a fan that, you matter. I'm not saying you don't, but you don't matter as much as you used to. Good morning to the family. I think I woke them up with the emergency broadcasting system. Wake up, get yourself a cup of joe. I'm going to take a quick break. We're on an emergency broadcast. Brian Harsin, will he make it or will he not? I have no clue. Lots of thoughts here. Let me go top this hot cup of joe off, and I'll be right back. And we're going to just go ahead and hunker down. Hurricane warning. The storm's on the ground and headed your way, folks. Let's go.
This station is conducting a test of the emergency broadcasting system. This is only a test. This is a test of the emergency broadcasting system. The broadcasters of your area, in voluntary cooperation with federal, state, and local authorities, have developed this system to keep you informed in the event of an emergency. If this had been an actual emergency, the attention signal you've just heard would have been followed by official information, news, or instruction.
All right, so it's up to me now to give you official information, news, and instructions. Welcome back to Radio Free Auburn, Saturday emergency broadcast edition, brought to you by our good friends at Roots Real Estate here in Auburn. That's Nick Hayes and his crew of professionals over there at www.rootsauburn.com. I'm telling you, they are good people. I've done a lot of work with them. They've always taken care of Uncle T-Bone, and I highly recommend them. That coffee hasn't quite kicked in yet. Just want you to go over there and find yourself some solid ground to plant your roots and settle down here in Auburn, Opelika, and on Lake Martin. That's Roots Real Estate. Nick Hayes, an Auburn fan and an Auburn man. You know the magic words. Tell them Uncle T-Bone sent you. Okay, so we're here talking about the Bryan Harsin saga right now. If you got any thoughts on this early Saturday morning, please get in the comments section. A little light this morning. My good friend Ben Murphy I went to college with down there in Orange Beach. Morning, T-Bone. Good morning, Ben. I hope you and your family are doing well. If you get a chance, send us a picture of that sunrise over the ocean, baby, over the Gulf of Mexico. I love it down there in Orange Beach. That's good people and a good place. Love that part of the state. Thank you for being here, Ben. So this past Thursday after National Signing Day, a lot of nasty rumors, a lot of information started leaking out, a lot of innuendo, a lot of stories, and a lot of upset people started talking about Coach Bryan Harsin. And it felt like almost a coordinated push to this average fan to push him, to get him out of here as the head coach at Auburn. And my thoughts are, if you're going to hire somebody to do a job, you ought to let them do their job and give them enough time to prove whether they're going to be successful or not. I'm not sure that 14 months into a program is a long enough time. I will say this, and it's not apples to apples. I've taken a job before with a very, very awesome organization, and it was a bad fit. And I knew it pretty quickly. And finally, after being miserable for a hot minute working at said place, I went to him and said, I can't do it anymore. This just isn't working out for me. I'm sorry. Nothing against y'all. This was just a bad fit. I've seen Auburn make some great hires in my lifetime on paper, and they turn out to be bad fits. Tony Barbee in basketball was a good hire on paper. Didn't work out. I was so excited when Tony Barbee was hired that I got season tickets. Had them for 3 years and then gave them up. Bad move, Uncle T. You should have stuck in there. You'd have those tickets now. Sonny Galloway in baseball from the University of Oklahoma, a good hire on paper, a bad fit. Didn't work out. Mike Price, the University of Alabama, a good hire on paper. Washington State's program under him was exceptional. Bad fit. Didn't work out. It's rolling, baby. You see where I'm going with this. ADs and people who hire at universities or anywhere are doing their very best to get the very best person in here, or who they think they are the best choice for their university. They're not out there. It's not Alan Green's fault that all this is going bad with Bryan Harsin right now. That's something that bothers me. Like, people are like, well, it's Alan Green's boy. He's going to have to go. Look, man, I was excited when Coach Harsin was hired, right? I got season tickets from a friend of mine who didn't want his. I bought them. Haven't bought season tickets in a couple of years. It's a new day in Auburn, right? Lunch pail mentality, 4th and 1 mentality. I thought on paper this was a great hire. And it still can be, even if it doesn't work out. It's hard to get the absolute perfect fit when you make these hires. Mike Shula wasn't the best fit at Alabama. Dennis Franchione wasn't the best fit at Alabama. You know, Tony Barbee wasn't the best fit at Auburn. These things happen. You hire folks, things get sideways, and if they do, then it's best to handle things amicably. Look, man, this ain't working. What's your plan to get it fixed? You don't have a plan. We're going to have to figure something out because we don't think this is working. That can go both ways. People can hire folks and then come to them 6 months later and say, I think we made a mistake. I'm sorry. Let's figure this out. Let's shake hands, because all's well that ends well. This isn't going to end well on its current trajectory. This isn't going to end well at all. And so people though who are like, it's way too early to pull the trigger on firing Coach Brian Harsin or running him out of Auburn, right? I don't think you want to run. I don't like the running someone up out of here method. If you don't want him here as the head coach, and the powers to be aren't going to give their money if he continues to be the head coach, then figure something out where everyone walks away happily, instead of it being aired out on ESPN and Chris Lowe and Pete Thamel articles, or in the Montgomery Advertiser, now on OANow.com or on AUTigers.com. No, nothing. I'm not attacking those venues for news, because I that's where I get my information. And I think that's where the average fan normally gets their information. But what I don't like about this whole situation are all the nasty rumors. It's just ridiculous. If you're trying to get somebody up out of a job, man up, and just get rid of the guy and move it on along. Or if he doesn't want to be here, go to your employers and man up and say, look, this ain't going to work out. Let's work something out. And all's well that ends well. That's not the current trajectory, though. But so I have to ask, though, why would someone want Brian Harsin out at Auburn, right? Why would you not think it's a bad fit? Why am I thinking, I don't know, just I had this feeling late in the season it's not a good fit? And I'm not saying I want the guy out. But if it's not going to work out, you might as well make the move and cut the cord and let's go. Let's just go. You don't want to waste time. Because every day that this continues to go on this trajectory, it gets worse and worse, and it becomes personal. And when it becomes personal, people start getting into nasty litigation. Brian Harsin went 6-7 his first year. I know he had a losing record. Is that right? They played 13 games, 6-7. Losing streak to end the season against Texas A&M, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Alabama, and the University of Houston in the Birmingham Bowl at New Protective Life Stadium. That place is awesome, by the way. Each one of those games, the Tigers had a lead late and gave it up. All right, so that's the defense coordinator's fault. He's gone. Is that what you're saying, T-Bone? No, really, the offense didn't really help out late in those games. So it's the offense coordinator's fault. He's gone too. Nah, it's not really what I'm saying. So we're sitting here debating, at one point before that losing streak started, Auburn was 6-2, and people around the plains were talking about, we're going back to the SEC championship, and we're going to get another shot at Georgia, and we're going to have a little redemption because we're going to win out, Uncle T. And that's when I was like pumping the brakes, like, hold on, guys, hold on. Not a profit here, but y'all might want to slow that down. And the absolute opposite occurred, and Auburn hadn't won a game since. I walked out of Jordan-Hare Stadium on Halloween weekend, Saturday night, in a very exciting atmosphere, and Auburn pummeled Ole Miss again. And I was excited, and that crowd was electric. And at that point, if you're telling me that Brian Harsin didn't have full support, I'm going to call you a liar. You're telling me that there were people at that point who still didn't support Brian Harsin, because I sure did. I supported him after the Georgia loss. Let's go back a couple of weeks even before then. Do people forget what happened against Georgia State at home, that Auburn, by the skin of their teeth, got away with beating that football team? That season last year could have been even worse. It could have been even worse. Could have been a lot better, too. So what are we talking about? We're talking about, we chalk it up here. It's just the first year roller coaster, right? Terry Bowden's first year, Gus Malzahn's first year. You've heard me ad nauseum say that. They were an anomaly. Most coaches, including Pat Dye, including Nick Saban, have really rough first years. So it's okay. Auburn, Brian Harson's had a really rough first year, right? Right? I think there's a little bit more to it than that. After the Alabama game and Auburn giving Alabama everything they got, and Auburn folks were really proud of the Tigers. Auburn went on in the early recruiting period on a good run of locking down solid 4-star players and rising up into the top 15 in recruiting by mid-December. Things are looking on the up and up. I know we had a losing streak to end the season. That was a really bitter loss to the Tide. But by God, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, because that's what the orange and blue is all about and what the Auburn Creed's all about. Sometimes you're going to lay your guts on the line and walk away empty-handed again and again and again. But that kind of effort's what you build a strong foundation on, right? I left Jordan-Hare Stadium after the Iron Bowl proud to be an Auburn Tiger. Yeah, that's right. We lost, and I was proud, because that is life for most people. Getting your heart ripped out when you give it everything you got. But getting up off that mat and getting back in the fight. And that's precisely what Auburn did in the recruiting world, and things were looking up. There's pictures of Derek Mason, Brian Harsin, out there on that recruiting trail. He's giving that recruiting finger. Look at this guy we just signed. Boom! We back, and we coming next year for your lunch money. Auburn. Everybody's like, Auburn, lockdown, another commit, another signee, boom. Defense tackle from Louisiana, right? Defense back out of Tallahassee, Florida. 4-star, gonna play basketball too. It's on, man. We're back. Things are looking good. Here's the roller coaster continuing. We're up. We were down, and we're coming up. And then something happened in that early recruiting season. This guy out of Lynette named, I believe, Caden Story, a 4-star defensive tackle whose father was his head coach, who had been committed to Auburn for a very long time, all of a sudden didn't sign. And that should have been an indicator that maybe things weren't so great here on the Plains. Right after that, Auburn's defensive line coach heads to Clemson. Guess where Story goes in the late signing period? Clemson. And then not long after that, the Birmingham Bowl comes along. Auburn's handling business in that game against a decent Houston team. They're probably a mid to late SEC team. They probably go 500 in the SEC, maybe not even that. They're probably a lot like Missouri, a team that Auburn should take care of year in, year out. Probably a lot like South Carolina. No offense to them, but Auburn should take care of them year in, year out. They have historically. And then it happens again, man. Late in that fourth quarter, a collapse. No offense. Defense is gassed. They've done their job all day. You just need one more stop, just one turnover, just something, and it doesn't happen. And that's an L in your own backyard to the University of Houston in Birmingham, Alabama. Roller coaster starting to go down. But wait, it gets worse. Not long after that, Derek Mason, he gone. Auburn's defense coordinator. Auburn had the 27th ranked defense in the country last year. Not only does he leave, it gets a little squirrely on his way out. He tells people, I'm probably not going to be here next year. I'm probably not going to coach football next year. I'm burned out. I've had enough. Whoa. Recruiting's like, the official national sign is just a couple weeks away. Do you think you can plow through it and stay with us? You think, nah, just not real happy in life right now. Personal reasons. Psych. I'm going to Oklahoma State because I'd rather coach defense at Oklahoma State than in the epicenter of competitive college football, the SEC, where being a defense coordinator at Auburn is a really good job. Look at some of these people who have been defense coordinator at Auburn. They've gone on to be head coaches. Gene Chizik, Paul Rhodes, Will Muschamp. Just to name a few. That's a really good job being the defense coordinator at Auburn. I mean, that's a great job. I'm going to go coach somewhere where they may not even have a conference in 2 years. Auburn did, the SEC didn't ask Oklahoma State to come and join the SEC. They asked Oklahoma and Texas, not OSU. The Cowboys in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Hell, I've never even been to Stillwater, Oklahoma. Sure, it's a nice place. That's a great school. I mean, hell, just about any university is a good school. But that program's not on the same level historically as one of the top 6 SEC programs historically. It's Oklahoma State, man. It's a top 30 program. Auburn's a top 15 program historically, whether you like it or not, listening out there. That's a step back, man. Why is our defensive coordinator, who used to be the head coach at Vanderbilt, who used to be the defense coordinator at Stanford under David Shaw, by all accounts has a solid reputation, very well known in college football. I know I was extremely excited when they hired him to be the defense coordinator. Why is he telling folks on the way out, personal reasons, I may not coach again, and then I'm going to Oklahoma State? Why? That's bizarre. Well, it gets more bizarre than that. And we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we're going to continue on this saga and this historical first season of Brian Harsin to try and figure out how we got here and where we are. This is the emergency broadcast
This station
system.
serves the Northeast. This station is conducting a test of the emergency
Radio Free
broadcasting system. This is only a test. This is a test of the emergency broadcasting system. The broadcasters of your area, in voluntary cooperation with federal, state, and local authorities, have developed this system to keep you informed in the event of an emergency.
Oh, we got an emergency, all right. Welcome back to Radio Free Auburn. It is 6:34 in the morning here on the plains, and the sun has started to come up. We'll see if it'll continue to come up on our football program. Sean Parker out in West Alabama. T-Bone, what's up, my man? David Fox. Diamond Dave, as a dog fan, bystander. Tom Crean is a terrible fit for UGA. Yeah, I'm going to have to say so. I was looking at that line this morning on scoresandodds.com. Auburn came out a 17.5-point favorite. That has dropped to 16 this morning. Georgia has played a little better in the past couple of games. They hosted Alabama a few weeks ago and beat them. So, first time Georgia came to town, Auburn blew them off the court. I think they had a couple of players missing. We'll see if they're more full speed today, and that's a little bit more competitive game. That'll be a sellout crowd that won't be because of Georgia fans. There'll be 3,000-4,000 Tiger fans up in that, whatever that Coliseum is over there in Athens for that game today at 12 o'clock. I'll be watching Dennis Mitchell, legend in Montgomery, on the local radio circuit. If Harsin is gone, what about Bill Clark? He has a good relationship with high school football in Alabama. He is a winner. Absolutely not. Bring back Gene Chizik as a placeholder for the next 3 years and find a coach. I like Gene Chizik. He's a good man. Got a lot of character. Gene Chizik's awesome to watch on the SEC network. That's from John Kemp over in Montgomery. Good morning, John. If they had to have someone who was in an intern type situation, would you go to a Gene Chizik for a couple of years and say, Coach, you know, we got to have you, man. We love you. Sorry about what happened last time. Do you think you can steady this ship? I mean, I think he could. I don't think that Auburn wants to go there. So we were talking about, but I like Gene Chizik. He's a good man. Did a lot for Auburn. We're talking about the emotional roller coaster of Brian Harsin's first year as a fan and within that program. Before we go any further, I'd like to point out something as a longtime Auburn fan. My belief is that Auburn folks will not put up with a couple of things. They'll put up with a lot, because we've had to over the years. Hell, we've had to put up with Alabama being so successful, and now Georgia too. Auburn fans will not put up with a lack of competitiveness. And I pointed out that when we collapsed against Mississippi State, didn't really get off the bus and show up against South Carolina, that Auburn fans were pretty upset because in those games we just kind of what felt like a lack of competitive spirit. And I don't think that Auburn fans expect Auburn University to win, like some schools win a national champion, fan bases win a national championship every year and win SEC title every year and be top dog every year. But by God, they better be fighting for it every day. And then, they did in the Alabama game. You're like, man, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. We're close. We're real close. Harson's close. We're okay. And then instability is the second thing that Auburn folks will not put up with. The city won't put up with it. When you got coaches coming and going and it's a revolving door, when you got players coming and going and it's a revolving door, when you got things that just are bizarre, like Derek Mason going to Oklahoma State, and even more bizarre after he leaves, and you fired Mike Bobo. I left that one out, your offensive coordinator, before Mason leaves. Now he's at Georgia over there. They're putting the band back together again. Bobo, Muschamp, Kirby Smart. It's going to be hard to recruit against them. And so you go out and you hire an offensive coordinator in Austin Davis, who came over from the Seattle Seahawks. He played football at Southern Miss. He played quarterback in the NFL. By all accounts, is an up-and-comer, a good young dude with a good reputation. And he gets here about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and we ain't seen him since. And he's gone now too. That's instability. And Auburn fans don't like it. You lost your offensive coordinator, Bobo, for whatever reason. You fired him. You hired another offensive coordinator, and no one really even ever seen him. Did he even step foot on campus, and he's gone in like 2.5 weeks. And now, in 14 months, you're searching for your third offensive coordinator. And you lost your defensive coordinator, and now you got a defense coordinator. You promoted one of your guys you brought over from Boise. Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, if you believe he's the right guy, I got to trust you. But that's 5 coordinators in 14 months, folks. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. And there's a reason why, because of that instability. They haven't even addressed all the players leaving yet. There's a reason why, just in that coaching, in those high-level positions, something isn't clicking. And I can see why very powerful people who run big businesses or whatever and have lots of money, they didn't get there by being inconsistent. And that's an inconsistency in the program, man. And if you don't think that people aren't going to start turning over some rocks and taking a look at what you're doing when those kind of things, when that kind of instability in your coordinators, in your coaching staff, and these inconsistencies are going on in your program, if you don't think that people aren't going to start taking a look at what you're doing, then you're a narcissist. Man, if you're getting paid big bucks to be the head coach at Auburn University, and you are, and things are kind of, they're sideways in your coaching staff with turnover, and you don't expect people to kind of take a look and say, hey man, what's going on? We got to talk about all this. Then you just don't get it. Now, I'm not saying Harson's, doing that right now, but people are going to want some answers, man, when there's so much turnover like that in your coaching staff. People are going to want some answers. When some people leave jobs, and I'm sure this is like it is at Auburn University, where they probably have to document everything. I've never worked over there. No one's ever asked Uncle T to work over there, but I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of documentation going on at Auburn University or any university that's federally funded, that's state funded, right? There's rules, and lots of them. How do you think those exit interviews went for Derek Mason and Mike Bobo? Do you think that they had anything to do, possibly, with causing some of these rocks to be kicked over and people taking a look at what's going on with the program? And with Eason and with Cornelius Williamson, who was left that one out. Hell, the wide receiver coach was fired 4 games in. Never seen that happen at Auburn, folks. Ever. We're in uncharted territory, man, is what I'm trying to tell you. Buckle up. As bad as you and as emotional as you thought that first year was, this offseason is going to be 10 times worse. 10 times worse. So you're losing all these coaches, right? And so I'm not trying to build a case to fire the guy, but I'm saying that there are people probably that are. You're losing all these coaches. This is bizarre. This is weird. What are you doing? And then after the early signing period, you start losing players off your team again. Now look, I know when there's a new coach, there's going to be a culling. There's going to be a culling because there's always players who liked it better with the old coach and they don't want to make changes and they're gone. That usually happens up until the first game of the first season. By summer practice, most of your people that were going to leave have left. Secondly, I know that this is a new world, and some players just leave because there's more opportunity somewhere else. They're getting paid in the NIL. There's all kinds of reasons that players leave now that don't have anything to do with I don't like the head man, or this isn't working, or this is weird, or I'm uncomfortable, whatever. But Auburn, by my count now, and I could be wrong, has lost 18 players since the Iron Bowl in their football program. All right? So what does that mean, T-Bone? They were all soft. They were all Gus Malzahn holdovers. They're weak. No, I don't like that. I don't like that. Some of those players may be, not all of them. That's ridiculous. That's just taking a shot at folks who want to move on with their lives, who may not like the head coach. And that's just kind of Kool-Aid pumping, Creed and drinking that I don't care if Brian Harsin does X, Y, Z, I'm going to support him, War Eagle. Good for you, man. You lose 18 players by my count. It could be more. In a month and a half, you've lost an entire recruiting class in your program. Okay? All those players getting exit interviewed too. What'd they say? What'd they say about the program on the way out? They had a lot to say yesterday on Instagram Live, and if I knew how to link that, I would. I don't know. Some of them players weren't real happy. Some other players on the team were calling them out for being soft. Truth's always somewhere in the middle, folks, when you're dealing with big groups of people. You just lost an entire recruiting class in your program, Coach Harsin. All right? 18 players. Say you can sign up to 25 players a year. You normally lose about 30%. That's about 7 or 8. You're down to about 18. 18 of those guys just left. You just lost an entire recruiting class. How do you make it up? Well, you bring some guys in from the portal, so that's fair, and Auburn did. 4, 5, 6 guys. And then you're going to continue after spring ball to start searching for people in the portal to supplement. That doesn't mean you're not going to lose people off your team either. So I've gone through, to the best of my ability, and we're just going to plow on through this break and keep on going to the end of the show. I've gone through, to the best of my ability, and put down some numbers here, okay? Ryan Harsin's had 2 recruiting classes at Auburn under his watch. They have had 19 players last year, 18 this year. That's 37 commitments. You can sign up to 25, so they're already behind. 50 minus 37. That's 13 players. They didn't make numbers on. Some of those guys, though, you get in the portal. All right? You hold scholarships. Some preferred walk-ons have developed. You give them scholarships. So let's not even worry about the max that they didn't sign. But Auburn has signed 37 people in 2 recruiting classes. Out of last year's class, I know of 6, I think 7 that are gone out of 19. All right, so now you're down to we'll say 30 people you've signed in 2 years. That's assuming that every person that you sign this year, every single one of them is coming to Auburn and will be here by summer practice. That's best case scenario. Say you get 30. Say they bring in 5 more guys in the portal. There's 35. You just lost 18. You got a net gain of 17 people. At best, in my opinion, Auburn will have 75 scholarship football players. That's just my guess to start summer practice. You can have the max is 85. We're down 10 players. We're not even on probation. They hadn't even taken scholarships away. What the hell's going on with that? You got to have bodies, man. Just because someone might not be the guy that you think they are, right? Like this offensive lineman that was from Demopolis. His name was Curtis Piegler, a 3-star who came on late. He's going to Missouri. Auburn should have signed that guy. Auburn should have signed Inez Cooper, another offensive lineman. Give them scholarships. Give them a chance. Develop them in your program. You got to have numbers. So there's a deficiency. There's a deficiency in Auburn scholarship numbers. Go through it yourself and say I'm wrong. And so that's going to make people kind of question what you're doing too. Right? You just had a losing season. You lost 5 games in a row. You're losing coordinators left and right. You're losing people off your staff left and right. We still haven't replaced the offensive coordinator. Spring practice is coming up. You're losing players. You're losing the numbers battle, the game of attrition on your roster. Other players that you didn't think were that hot in the state of Alabama are going to Missouri. They're going to Miami. They're going to Kentucky. These 3-stars that you could have on your team. I'm not saying you can't have all 3 stars. We all remember Chris Davis. There goes Davis, 3-star out of Birmingham. You got to take a few of those guys to supplement your roster, man. You're losing players. You're making other schools better by not taking these players. You didn't close with anybody on signing day. Auburn was after Trevante Citizen, Louisiana, he went to Miami. Jalen Farmer, offensive lineman, went to Florida. After Jack Pyburn, defensive end out of Florida, went to Florida. Ofer. A lot of bad trending stuff, man. You got to expect at that point, after all of that, to get questioned about your program, man. Don't be defensive about it. If you are, I don't know. And so all this builds up to, so that whole entire scenario I just laid out builds up to Thursday night. And people start posting some pretty nasty rumors, and then all Hades breaks loose. Next thing you know, Coach Brian Harson's in Mexico, we believe, on vacation, and he's talking to Pete Thamel and Chris Lowe from ESPN, saying all this is an attack on my character. This is BS, to put it nicely, is what he said. The article is on oanow.com. If you want to check it out, by Jordan D. Hill. It's a great article. Go check them out over there at oanow.com. Any attack on my character is bull bleep. None of that is who I am. You know, asked about losing Derek Mason, the promotion of Jeff Schmedding, the hiring of Austin Davis. We believed in Austin and felt like he was that person. But unfortunately, that's not the case. There's a miss. Now we got to find somebody to do the right job for us. Okay, that's probably going to be another guy, another internal guy that you trust from Boise. It's a lot of folks in key positions that are your guys. You got to have folks that know the territory in the South. That's just friendly advice. You got to have a couple of guys out there who know the territory and who can recruit. The article goes on to talk about Lee Hunter, who was a pretty big-time recruit of Brian Harson's last year, a defensive lineman. He's transferring to UCF. He said that they were treated pretty much like dogs over there. And then the article goes on to talk about players who say that's a lie. And we got a nasty fight. Harson goes on to talk about, quoted, I am the coach. at Auburn, I'm operating like that every day, and we're going to leave this place better than we found it. You know, we'll see. I do know this: Auburn's recruiting in the last 2 years, they're missing out on key players. They're hovering around 20, and if you don't have the players, you don't have a chance. So where do we go from here, man? Where do we go from here? We didn't even get to basketball today. I guess we'll just skip it. Auburn's still number one, going to Georgia. Some other games in the league that are pretty interesting. Kentucky going to Alabama. That'll be fun to watch. Kentucky's playing a lot. Kentucky's a good team, man. That was a really good win for Auburn. Whew. Let me get a drink of coffee and we'll try and close this show on out. Thank you so much for being here. Radio Free Auburn Emergency Saturday broadcast brought to you by our good friends at Roots Real Estate. Check them out at www.rootsauburn.com. Where do we go from here? It's a great question. I just got a text from somebody asking me, just point blank, do you think Brian Harsin will be the coach here at Auburn next year? Put a gun to my head and I'll say, yeah, I do. Just solely on the fact that Auburn folks aren't going to stand for instability. You know, when Tommy Tuberville almost got fired in 2003, and they had all the right to do it, the news broke, and it gave the perception that everything was being handled in a bad way, and it got aired out into the public. And once it gets aired out into the public, the fans normally will take the side of the coach, unless the coach has been there for a while and it's just a complete disaster, like the end of Tony Barbee. It's like he didn't have any support. The fans weren't going to support him. Auburn folks don't want instability. So at this point, this has all been aired out, and I can just sense the Auburn fan base slowly saying, look, this guy's our coach. Y'all hired him. Give him a chance. You know, there's a case to be made that things are going in a bad direction, but you can always chalk that up just to the first year, and you can always also chalk it up to the fact that this guy may or may not have had complete support from people that matter when he was hired, because he wasn't their guy. And I can just sense Auburn folks saying, look, you know, y'all hired this dude. He's our coach. Give him a shot. Give him a chance. So if you put a gun to my head right here on Saturday, February, 5th, 28 degrees outside. It looks like it's really cold. I got the heater on in here and the space heater trying to warm up. I'd say it'll probably be here next year. But if they told me tomorrow that he was out, I wouldn't be shocked either. And I know that's kind of like talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I really don't know. This thing is like the football season in his first year. It's here that he's gone. Then it's here he's staying. It's here that he's gone. It's here that he's staying. Whatever they do, though, they need to go ahead and get this thing wrapped up pretty quick, and everybody needs to get back on the same page and kiss up and play nice. If he's staying. Because if it turns into, well, Coach Harsin's staying, but everyone's still kind of at each other's throats behind the scenes, then it's just going to become toxic. And it's already there. So when something's toxic, you kind of pull the plug on it and then clean it up. This is a pretty wild story, though, I can tell you that. And there was an article also that I'd like to bring up before we close out from the Montgomery Advertiser. You can check them out over there online. And, man, it really goes through. One thing I don't like about it is it has unnamed sources, okay? And so, you know, I come on here, I'm Uncle T-Bone, I'm Wade Bennett. I have to stand by what I say. Good or bad, ugly. I preface it that I'm a fan, and sometimes I get emotional and say things I probably shouldn't say in the heat of the moment. But you know me, you can come to my Facebook page. You know I live here. You'll see me in the grocery store. If you don't like something I say, and you get up in my grill, I'm going to have to deal with it, right? If I say something ridiculous and make outrageous claims, it's not like this is some guy hidden behind a blog. I've been that guy too, or a message board like Randy Tiger 79 posted this. Nobody knows who you are. So these articles, outside of the one that was quoted by Lee Hunter, and outside of the one that was quoted by other players, and outside of the one that was quoted by Harsin, have a lot of unnamed sources. And lots of times when there's unnamed sources, they got an axe to grind. They have an agenda. So take all these articles with sources with a grain of salt. And like anything, like being a fan, I don't want you to be a Kool-Aid drinker. I don't want you to be a hater. I want you to be in the middle. Just a fan. You have all the right in the world to be happy sometimes and on top of the world, and all the right in the world to be at the bottom of the world. So with these articles, and information that comes in about this whole thing, the truth is normally somewhere in the middle. But this article in the Montgomery Advertiser paints a more sour picture of the program, and some of the stuff that's said in here, if true, it's a little disturbing. It's like, and to me, the main thing in here, if this is true, that bothers me as a fan of Auburn, is that the last part of the article from the Montgomery Advertiser. Quote, a source also said Harsin hated the concept of name, image, and likeness. That's NIL, folks, and made that clear to players. Harsin was particularly critical of players from low-income families who receive money from NIL deals because he thought they lost their focus on football, one source added. Okay, we're going to have to talk about that. Dude, I don't like NIL. I don't like the transfer portal. Hell, I'm so old school, I don't like the playoff system, which I think's nothing more than a beauty pageant still. I liked it when all big bowl games were tied in and everybody played on New Year's Day, and it started at 10 in the morning and it ended at 10 at night. And 10 in the morning, people were voting to see who's the national champion. You might have multiple national championships. I don't like overtime. I still old school. I wish they had ties. And I'd have been fine with a tie in the Iron Bowl this year. And I still like defense and 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I'm old school too, Harsin. I hate the NIL. But let me tell you something. In today's world, if you aren't doing everything you can do to get the talent, I can promise you your rivals are. Look at Texas A&M. Look at Alabama. Look at Georgia. The NIL, man. Name, image, and likeness. Getting players paid. If you aren't in on that, you're going to have about 65 players on your team. None of them are going to be more than 2 or 3 stars. And they may be the toughest sons of guns that go fight in the Columbus Badman contest every year, right? They might have your 4th and 1 mentality, and they might have your lunch pail mentality, and Auburn fans, all 45 to 50,000 of them that'll be in the stadium, because your teams are going to be 4 and 8, 5 and 6. You have to participate in name, image, and likeness now. And look, man, some of these kids that come from lower income, I didn't grow up like them. I didn't have a child when I was 16 or 17 or 2 children. They need money, man. They have mouths to feed. They have real bills. Dude, if they're ignoring or even hindering NIL in this football program, they're done. You're done. Go coach at Youngstown State, where fundamentals matter, and you get the players you get, and X's and O's matter, and you can be tough, and you're going against other schools that don't have NIL. If you're not dealing in NIL right now, you're done. If you're not hammering the transfer portal to get the top talent and attract them with NIL deals, and I'm not sure that's exactly how it works, but I think that's how it is working, or how it's supposed to work, but that is how it's working, you're done. I was talking to a friend of mine who's in sales the other day, and he said, look, man, relationships matter. We ain't even gotten that. What kind of relationships do we have right now in the high school coaching ranks where you get the players? But he was like, relationships still matter. It's not all about the money. Bull butter. Dude, it comes down to like 3, 4 schools, and you're a top stud running back. You're the number one running back in the country. And it comes down to going to Alabama or Georgia or Texas A&M. Unless you grew up, and I'm talking about hardcore one of the fans of those schools, and you got family that's hardcore one of the fans of that school, alumni of that school, and your dad played there or was an alumni there, unless it's just, I'm talking about hardcore, it comes down to 3 or 4 schools, what's going to be the deciding factor? Hey man, you can you can be the face of De Palma's Italian restaurant and make $250,000 a year to play here. They're only offering 50. And dude, it doesn't even take someone from the hood who's low income to make that decision, right? But if you really need the money and you got mouths to feed and you got real bills to pay, because you started way earlier than most people, you're going to take that money and run. That's a massive issue to me, and that needs to be addressed right now if Ryan Harson's going to stay. NIL is it. It is it. It is here to stay. And if you're not participating in it, you got massive, massive issues. Thank you so much for being here. This emergency broadcast this morning. I mean, some great comments. Look at two-shot John Kaler, a celeb. I love it. Former Auburn basketball player. Face it, college is now semi-pro, ruining college sports. I couldn't agree more, my man. We're either going to have to find another hobby or figure it out, though. You know what I'm saying? Cajun Oregon. Sean Oregon, my man. How are we going to recruit anyone if he stays? I like him, but the damage is done. I don't think so, man. I mean, you don't know that yet, but there's a lot of, if it goes on much longer, the damage will be permanently done. Auburn has a way of even in its darkest times rising up out of the ashes. I've seen it before, so not all hope is lost. But this is a really tough time for sure. Look, I'm going to check just a real quick over some of these places I go. And no news right now, I guess, is good news. I think everyone needs to take a deep breath. And Auburn folks and the guys from Boise and everyone associated with Auburn football program better come together and figure this out, or better just part ways and let's move it on along. Radio Free Auburn emergency broadcast brought to you this Saturday morning by Roots Real Estate Investment and Development. That's my man Nick Hayes, baby. Find yourself some solid ground to plant your roots and settle down. That's www.rootsauburn.com. Tell them Uncle T-Bone sent you. This has been an emergency broadcast, and we're very proud to bring it to you. Radio Free Auburn. We're going to try and get back in next week. If anything breaks, I can promise you, and I'm talking about big, the rest of this weekend we'll be here. So let's go, Bruce Pearl. Let's go, Auburn Tigers. Sorry we didn't get to basketball, and I know that was a mouthful. And I hope everyone has a amazing, amazing rest of your weekend. War Eagle, everybody. We're out of here.
This station is conducting a test of the emergency broadcasting system. This is only a test.